All right, we'll try her one more time. I'm so sorry. I really am. Apologize for this. Ugh, it's frustrating. Apologies, my computer's overheating. I was just going to do mobile on YouTube, but we'll try it one more time on the computer. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to wait to hear my thoughts tomorrow. Until tomorrow, I guess. I'm so sorry. There you go. There, you had a phone call. So far, it's good. I just don't know. If I wasn't broke as a joke, I'd buy a desktop or a new laptop here so that I could do a little streaming at work, but it's just not in the cards right now. So, apologies. Here we go. Three time. Yeah. Twitch chat way better than... Wait, YouTube. Earmuffs. Oh, yeah, Twitch chat way better. Yeah, Travis. I'm doing this like I read books. I read dozens of books a week. They're all cardboard and 4 pages long for my son Hank, but still. Same here. Yeah, I'm doing like 10 videos tonight. All right. Let's jump back in because I don't know how long it'll go with the computer. So, let's look at this Bragg case specifically. What is the allegation with the Bragg case that's so serious? Because we know what the consequence is. We have an election going on. The Republican candidate, the opposition candidate for president, is being told that he cannot defend himself and speak about the case or he'll go to jail. And he must personally be in court every day that the hearing's going on until the end of it. So, while his opponent could be out campaigning, doing whatever he wants, Trump cannot. He has to be in court every day. The camera is an old Logitech C920. I haven't changed the set. I lowered the settings, actually. Fuck Twitch chat, yeah. Yeah, I know Robert Whaley. Look, there's people in way worse financial situation than me. At least I'm not missing any meals, so don't worry about it. But anywho, so all of that, we're coming into a big presidential election, and we've agreed that there is a charge that is so important that the one candidate has to be tied down every day in court. So what's the charge? What is such a heinous crime that warrants this treatment? Does anybody even know? The trial that just started. Does anyone know what it's... Can't talk about it. Trump's not allowed to talk about it. Can't tweet about it. Has to be in court every day. What's the charge? I saw that. Good for Good Logic, too. Suing to try to get the gag order taken away. No, the charge is an obstruction. The crime that he's alleged to have done, this is it. He's alleged to have paid, I don't know what the exact dollar amount. I've looked into this. It doesn't really say. $130,000 that allegedly he paid to a woman that basically was going to tell people she slept with him. Actually, okay, it's the exact opposite. No, it's not that he used campaign money for personal expenditure. It's the opposite. It's that he didn't use campaign money, and it wasn't a personal expenditure. Now, here's part of the story. Had Trump used campaign money to pay off Stormy Daniels, they would have brought charges saying, you can't do that. That's a personal expenditure. If Trump didn't use campaign money and instead used personal money, they'll say, you can't do that. It was a campaign expenditure. You see? You see how that works? It would have been charged either way, no matter what Trump did. And then, of course, this is a misdemeanor that they drew out past the statute of limitations, calling it a felony, because they're saying that he had intent to hide the charges, which makes it a felony. But the big thing that we need to possibly interfere and decide the election of the President of the United States is a dude paid a woman to keep quiet about an alleged affair. That's it. That's it. That's the big... Oh, and when you hear about this stuff, like the left always says is, all these charges are going after Trump. Oh, obstruction of justice, it's so serious. Oh, the mishandling of classified information, it's so serious. Oh, the paying of Stormy Daniels, it's so serious. Oh, lying to law enforcement, it's so serious. We have to charge all these. It's so serious. Oh, the overvalue of property, it's so serious. So serious. It's so serious that when you can point out litany of other people doing the same things that aren't charged, they're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. That's it. That's the big case. Now, first off, if this was Hillary Clinton and some guy was like, hey, I slept with you and I'm going to tell everyone as you're running for president, Hillary would have been deemed a hero. How dare this man try to extort a sexually liberated woman like Hillary Clinton? How dare he try to control her body? But it's Trump, so fuck him. He should just be extorted. Right? Now, based on the legal theory that they're using here, they're saying, well, it had to be that Trump used... The reason it's a campaign expenditure was because him getting the NDA of Stormy Daniels to not talk about this was to help his chances in the election. That could have been part of it. The problem is, did Trump have an incentive to keep this story from getting out other than running for office? In other words, if Donald Trump would have never ran for office in 2016, can you think of a scenario where if some woman was going to publicly accuse Trump of sleeping with her, that he would have been like, let's sign an NDA? Can you think of a scenario? I can. You want to know how I can? Because celebrities and CEOs all the time pay people to sign NDAs. And very rarely are they running for political office. Vince McMahon, you could say. Okay, we can even go further than that if you want to get in the wrestling world. Tony Khan, that owns AEW Wrestling. Apparently everyone that leaves the company he has signed an NDA. So if Tony Khan happened to run for governor next year, and someone leaves his wrestling company and he has them sign an NDA, is that a campaign expenditure? Something he would have done many times over when he wasn't running for office, but now all of a sudden because he's running for office, it's a campaign expenditure. How far are we willing to take this? If the argument is, well, anything that could potentially help you in the campaign's a campaign expenditure, okay, what about a new car? Want to look flashy driving around so people think, wow, that guy's wealthy. That guy looks like he's really doing well. I'll consider voting for him. Is that a campaign expenditure? Does that mean if I run for office again and my beat up Dodge Journey isn't doing so well, so I buy a new car? That's a campaign expenditure? If I don't report that? What if I get a new suit? Campaign expenditure? What if I get a new haircut? What if I get my teeth whitened? Campaign expenditure? How far are we willing to go with this? Yeah. Not only is she still a story, literally Trump has to be in court every day until the trial ends, starting yesterday. But okay. Fine. If that's the standard, that's the standard. If something's alleged to be a campaign expenditure, and you don't write it down, and you don't report it, then you get charged with felonies, and you have to sit in court every day. Fair enough. Only, we have a recent example of this occurring. Hillary Clinton. See, unlike paying off someone who basically was extorting you and going to say salacious sexual allegations, Hillary Clinton's team actually did blatantly pay for a campaign expenditure. The Steele dossier, which was opposition research to help her win an election. And they did not disclose that. They said it was legal fees and not a campaign expenditure. And they lied about it for a year. Was she charged with felonies? No! She was given a slap on the wrist, allowed to pay a small fine. By any objective measure, what she did was worse. Clear-cut campaign expenditure. Trump having an NDA, not clear-cut campaign expenditure. Hillary's campaign expenditure was actually doing exactly what they accused Trump of doing, colluding with a suspected Russian spy to get disinformation, which not only did she get that disinformation, then used it by sending it to the FBI, who then broke the law to use it to spy on Trump's team and start a 3-year investigation, almost 4-year investigation. Slap in the wrist, fine, no problem. But not Trump. Now, all the people that are out there telling you today, this is a serious alleged crime. It's serious. It's so serious that they had to overlook the statute of limitations. Where were they when Hillary's team did it? Where were they? Not a peep amongst them. Imagine, now keep in mind, Bragg, just like Letitia James, which is the other case we'll talk about here, ran on the promise of getting Donald Trump. So imagine that I run as Attorney General here in Pennsylvania and win, and my campaign promise is, I promise if elected, I will take down Hillary Clinton. DJ Farmboy, I know you're no stranger to this. I'll say one more time, I don't know what Project 2025 is. It's some inside joke. Oh, you should know. You asked me the second time. If you ask me a third time, I'm just going to mute you so I can't see you. I don't know what Project 2025 is. End of story. Got it? I'd like to know your thoughts, DJ Farmboy, on Project 20763. What's your thoughts on that? I'll ask you 50 times by the end of the night. You fucking idiot. Where were they? Because you're like, okay, can you show me in history where we've had a former president who's then the front runner for president in the next election, who's gone through trials like that? He couldn't talk about it, had to sit in court. Can you show me that? No, it's never happened. When they say that, they go, well, that's because Trump's such a blatant criminal. The crimes he's alleged to have committed are serious. No one is above the law. These are serious crimes. Serious. Okay, fine. We're going to say that these are felonies that people need. Remember, federally, this was looked into by the Justice Department, Biden's Justice Department, who said, no, we're not going to prosecute it. You got an Imaginarium. I don't care about Trump. If the new standard becomes, listen, if you force a woman to sign an NDA, that's considered a campaign expenditure. And if you don't write down a campaign expenditure, your ass is going to prison. You're being charged with felonies. I have no problem. That's probably people that didn't file correct campaign expenditures. My guess is 30-40% of the people in Washington at the congressional level or higher. Fine, throw them all in jail. I don't give a shit. I hate almost all of them. Well, hate's a strong word. No problem. So when you debate one of these people, you're like, okay, you think this is a serious crime? Here's Hillary Clinton. They'll go, no, that's different. That's different. No, that's whataboutism. We're only talking about Trump committing crimes. That's it. This Stormy Daniels thing, very important. Very important. Hillary's team colluding with the suspected Russian spy and then lying about that campaign expenditure. Not a big deal at all. Small fine there. But stop having a woman sign an NDA to help save your marriage. That's a big deal. Big deal. See, when all the institutions are on your side and they're engaged in a two-tier system of selective prosecution. Yeah, DJ Farmboy, I'll answer you real quick. I saw what you typed there. Yeah, I get it, DJ Farm. DJ Farmboy wants me to comment on basically this. Rob, aren't you scared shitless that if Trump gets in office, he'll do to others what they've done to him? Wouldn't that be terrible? Imagine if he appoints people that agrees with him into his bureaucracy, and then they do things like use the IRS to target left-wing groups, or use prosecutors to get FISA warrants to spy on people he disagrees with, or maybe he'll have the FBI show up to school meetings with left-wingers and spy on them and investigate them. Wouldn't that be horrible, Rob? Can you comment on that? My God, what if he has his people talk with his FBI point? What if they talk with social media companies and try to get things censored that are against his agenda? My God, that would be terrible. Yeah, fuck off, DJ Farmboy. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. I have no interest in engaging in left-wingers that had no problem with the corruption they see in these institutions today, pissing their pants and going, oh my God, but what if Trump wins and does it in return to us? Sorry, I don't give a shit. If Trump abuses his power as president, I will have a moral framework for which to protest that and say that that's something I am against. You have none of that. You have no leg to stand on. Those that cheered on or ignored the corruption we've seen in these institutions in 2016 and prior to that have no leg to stand on. None. I am uninterested in hearing people that have made excuses and cheered on this corruption because Orange Man bad and it's okay to be directed at him and his supporters sit here and then go, but what if in 2025 Trump wins and does the same thing? Don't give a shit. If a person who agrees with me more politically wants to have a conversation with me about Project 2025, if a person that's spoken up, like maybe a left-winger like a Glenn Greenwald or a Michael Schellenberger wants to have a conversation with me, or a Jimmy Dore, happily would have that conversation with them. I will not have that conversation. Just like when Pisco asked me, Rob, will you condemn the idea that Trump should illegally get FISA warrants to spy on his opponents? My answer is the same to you as it was to Pisco. I owe you nothing. Those of you that stood idly by and cheered this on or allowed it to happen and didn't speak up, fuck you. The obvious, it's the same answer I give to the people that wanted to say, but the Black Lives Matter protests are mostly peaceful. It's the language of the unheard. And I kept saying, you do understand that eventually the right wing will riot. And when they do, you're all going to be sitting here going, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. It's an attack on our country. What are we going to do? And I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to say, shut up. This was always the predictable consequence of what people like you cheered for. You're fine with it when it's your side. It's the same type of rationale like the last time I debated Hutch, where I talked about what Christian nationalists would say when people that aren't Christians say, but I'm going to use your religious beliefs to tell you how you should act. Sorry, I don't play that game. No. Sorry. Like, calm down, get a grip. You don't like it, go to a different channel. Oh my God, you're the one who kept bringing Project 2025. What do you think of that, Rob? I don't know what it is. You should know. You should. But seriously, man, what do you think of Project 2025? I don't know what that is. Well, listen, it's the Christian, the Heritage Foundation. It's their secret plan. Trump's gonna install Christian nationalists. He's gonna remake the government in his image to be authoritarian and Christian. What do you think? I'd love to get your comments on this. I think fuck you. Boy, that'd be a shame. I hope it keeps you up at night. God forbid you suffer 1/10 the consequence which you cheered for ignored when it was directed at people you didn't like. How many January 6 people that were nonviolent languish in prison still to this day and people like you don't give a fuck about, think they deserve it? How many parents at school board meetings were looked into by the FBI? How many people got knocks at their door from the FBI for things they were saying online or things they went to? How many bank accounts, records have been pulled for people that were there January 6th that didn't even go into the Capitol, that had their bank statements looked at, their geographic data collected? You didn't give a shit about that. You didn't speak up against that. And I don't just mean you, DJ Farmboy. I mean the average Democrat. Didn't give a shit. And just like with cancel culture that I said for years, that I was like, no, we shouldn't return the game. I don't have a problem that, what was the name of the woman? Kathy Griffin hung up the severed head of Trump. It was a joke, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a problem. I don't think these people should be canceled. The truth is, I was wrong. I still am a person of principle, and if you don't believe me, I don't care if you're Democrat or American. I've interacted with you enough to know where you stand. You're an anti-Trumper. Talked to Richie the other day about this. Talked to Andrew Wilson about this. I'm not a Christian nationalist. I'm not. But I would fare better under their society because I am a Christian. But I'm someone that's principled. I believe in small government. I'll continue to push that. But I'm tired of the people that were silent or cheered on large government corruption directed at people they didn't like, then gnash their teeth and have crocodile tears that the same thing may be done to them. Sorry. I don't care. I'll still argue with the Christian nationalists. Now, back to the Bragg case. Now that we've got that out of our system. There, did you get my thoughts on 2025 project? Is that good for you, DJ Farm Boy? Feeling good now? Any more questions on it? I don't think we should usher in Christian nationalism. However, I do think that he should... Trump's not going to... The Heritage Foundation's policy isn't near far enough what I want. I would immediately get rid of the FBI. Like, immediately. Day one. I would fire pretty much every top-level bureaucrat in every agency. And I would install people that I could trust. I would install my fucking neighbor who has no experience in politics to the head of the CIA before I'd trust anyone who's been at the top level of it in the past 20 years. Easily. Because at least I know he means well. He can learn the facts of the job. That's better than someone running it going, yes, Mr. President, we have your back, and then stabbing you in the back. Well, DJ Farmboy, if your opinion is, no, Rob, you don't know anything about it, so don't give your thoughts, then why the first time when I said I don't know about it, did you keep saying you would like to get my thoughts on it? If we're not commenting on things we don't know about, then DJ Farmboy, perhaps you should sit there silently. Because if you exhibited, not just today, but in your past of the comments you've made here, that you know very little about anything. So if we're setting a standard of not commenting on things we don't really know about, then perhaps silence is the best policy for you. No, it wouldn't be... Did Biden install his loyal cronies? He fired a bunch of people connected to Trump. Did you speak up? Isn't that funny? When Obama got rid of a bunch of Bushites, no problem. When Biden gets rid of a bunch of Trump's people, nope, no problem. But what if Trump does it? Richie is a very cool guy. I really like Richie. But the truth is, you'll see, DJ Farmboy, you'll see. Ultimately, people that are more moderate like me will lose because the left can't control, and the establishment that uses the voice of the left can't control themselves. They believe they're morally superior and the ends always justify the means. So they'll arrest Trump and all of his attorneys and all of his attorneys and blah, 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 and disbar attorneys and charge him for shit like this Bragg case. They'll do all this stuff. And then it's eventually the only way to fight back. Someone on the other side is going to say, okay, that's what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden people like you will be like, no, you can't do that. Same shit with X. No one, the left was, right-wingers are saying they're censored on social media. Oh, cry about it. Oh, wait, Elon might buy X? What if I'm censored? What if people I like are censored? No, you have to be free speech. Elon, you said you're for free speech. This is terrible. No. What if they censored Joe Biden? What if they censored Democrats? Can you imagine kicking a presidential candidate off a platform? Oh my God, it'll be so anti-democratic. You're welcome to stay. You can chat. I wish no hard feelings on you personally. But I literally do not give a shit about anyone's opinion who wants to speak up about potential authoritarianism that's remained silent over the past 8 years of the treatment of Trump and the people surrounding him. I have no interest. It's like the drug addict complaining, "Whoa, you better watch out, man. You've had 2 beers tonight." Thanks, buddy. So, the Bragg case, that's where we're at. No one can make a compelling case why Hillary shouldn't have been charged as much. And at the end of the day, we can go through the playbook, what they'll say. They'll say, no, what's bad is uniquely what Trump did. That's what's uniquely bad. You see, what happened is he had his lawyer pay, and then he personally reimbursed his lawyer to intentionally get around the campaign finance. Okay, well, Hillary's team not only just paid their lawyers and said it was legal fees, they then lied publicly for over a year, including on national television, saying, no, we didn't finance it for a year. So that's clearly them concealing. They didn't properly file the paperwork, and they lied about it openly. That's concealment. See, there we go. DJ Farmboy. Fighting the corrupt establishment by defending Trump. Right. Why do I will admit one of my weaknesses is I could have 5,000 people watching me and everyone being like, "Hey, Rob, pretty good show." And I'm going to give attention to the people that are disagreeing with me. So perhaps DJ Farmboy missed the whole spiel that I did earlier where I talked about, does anyone remember what I said? Why does DJ Farmboy say me calling out these double standards and talking about things like the abuse of the FBI? Why does he say that that's, quote, me fighting the establishment by defending Trump? Why does he say that? Does anyone know? I told you. I could already tell you so much about DJ Farmboy. I could tell you exactly what his political beliefs are, what his defining motivation is on his political beliefs. Does anyone know? Does anyone remember why I told you that they say things like this? It's almost universal. I said 95%. Right, because his worldview is, I hate Trump. That's it. Take Trump down. That's my politics. Everything else is secondary. So then if someone disagrees and says, wait a minute, my issue is I have a problem with these institutions engaging in double standards and authoritarianism. He reads that as, you're defending Trump. Oh my God, talking about corruption at the FBI. Here we go. Rob had a problem with them illegally getting FISA warrants. Defending Trump. There it is. He's defending Trump. And he's an idiot, yeah. That's it. So this is, and again, it's great because I do like this interaction because you could literally see in real, it's the same, we'll get to it, hopefully, unless my computer crashes, these tweets that I had with Hutch, you could see in real time how they prove your point in real time, over and over again. I do crave debate. That is probably what's going on. So here's some of the strategy. First, they'll say, no. Specifically what Trump did's bad. That's the only thing that's bad. Then they'll say, it's whataboutism to bring anything else up. Then they'll say, you're just defending Trump. Trump's corrupt. He's a bad guy. And well, you're just defending Trump because you love Trump. And then ultimately, what some of them will say at the end of the day, right? There's 2 more strategies they'll go with. You'll get those that just meme their way through it. Okay, yeah, whatever, Orange Man going down, buddy. Okay. But trust us, we're really concerned about our democracy. Orange Man going down. And then, lastly, you'll get these people. Okay, then charge Hillary. Good to see you, Ninja. That's what most of them, well, I don't want to say most, that's what a good portion will do. They'll try to debate one-on-one, and they'll go through. It's just like, the 10 cycles of grief or whatever. They'll go through them one by one, and then they'll get to the end, and they'll say, okay, then I guess Hillary should have been charged. Right, she wasn't. My concern is the institutions, the legal institutions, and the 2-tiered system. So if you're agreeing that Hillary should have been charged and she wouldn't, that's the exact problem that I'm identifying. My focus isn't Hillary should be charged. I don't think Hillary should be criminally charged. Looking at felonies for misreporting the Fusion GPS payments. I also don't think Trump should be. I don't think Hillary should have been charged with a crime for her classified server and mishandling classified documents. I don't think Trump should be either. I do think that the person that deleted subpoenaed evidence on Hillary's team should have been charged, but that's another question. And yet, these people on the left, they're like, no, Trump should be charged, but not those other people. Because no one is above the law. These are serious charges. That's why we need to go after Trump, but not these other people. Or, okay, they're no longer useful to us. Yeah, charged. I guess they should have been charged. Whatever. Too late now. It's 2016. It's not too late to charge Trump for campaign payments in 2016. The thing Hutch was arguing with me about was the Mar-a-Lago case, the case of the overvaluing of assets, where Trump was fined $500 million. $500 million. And the left knows it. By the way, I wish they'd just be honest. Like, there's something refreshing about the, like, authoritarian lefty that'll just tell you. Like, as scummy as he is, someone like Vosh would be like, yeah, we could lie to win. Of course. I hate Trump. Stop him. It's like stopping Hitler before he came to power. At least there's a refreshing honesty in their dishonesty, right? But so many of these other people, no, it's just about, these crimes are very serious. That are alleged, they're very serious. Then they'll go things like this. They'll be like, oh man, Trump's going to spend $500 million. Oh, they're seizing his assets now. Boy, that's going to hurt him in the campaign, huh? Oh, this is very serious, though. It's about democracy. It's very serious. It's serious about democracy. Oh boy, how's Trump going to afford this? They don't, Achilles. They don't get it. They are so emotionally, their entire political view is orange man bad, take him down. You can't rationalize. You can't say, okay, even if you could, thank you so much, Murgatroyd, I really appreciate it. Even if you think Trump deserves it, can't you understand that once we give these powers and once we accept this, that they'll just keep doing it to more and more people until eventually it affects you or people you support? It doesn't matter. Orange man bad! Orange man bad! Rape suit was bullshit. Trump organization fraud, I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about. Classified documents case, bullshit. Hush money case, bullshit. Election fraud case, bullshit. January 6th, bullshit. Yes. Or rather, there are crimes of equal significance in each one of those that were committed by people that are opponents of Donald Trump who weren't charged. If even one of those charges were bullshit, does anyone think that's a big deal, even if you hate Trump? For example, let's say you're like, I think all the charges are legit except this Bragg one, the Stormy Daniels thing. I think that's bullshit. Okay, well, you see how it's interfering in the election. You think that's okay? That a New York attorney general that ran on the promise of getting Donald Trump could literally put his finger so strongly on our national elections with a bullshit case just to drag it out? Is that okay? See, the impetus isn't on me to prove each of these cases are bullshit. I'll talk about each of the cases. Quite the opposite. The impetus should be on the people supporting them that each of the cases aren't bullshit. Because if there's even one case that is being done politically to affect this election and it's a bullshit case, that should outrage each and every American. But it won't. Well, DJ Farmboy, what did I just say? For example, I said, I don't think Hillary Clinton should have been charged with mishandling classified information. I don't think Hillary Clinton should have been charged with a felony for failing to report the payments to Fusion GPS. So if you listened to me, you would hear that's what I was saying. I don't think Kamala Harris should have been taken off the ballot for supporting a bail fund for people that rioted and burned down, engaged in an insurrection, attacking governmental buildings. But I also don't think Trump, for liking tweets, should have been kept off a ballot because that was engaging in an insurrection. So let's get to this Letitia James case. So the case is quite simply that Mar-a-Lago and a bunch of other properties were overvalued. If you don't know about the case, I'll give you the bare bones of it. We've talked about it before, so I want to get into the specifics of what the conversation I had today was about it. But I even mentioned this on Tim Pool's show. This is as easy as I could make this to understand. The allegation is as follows. Trump overvalued his properties, and even though the bank was happy with the loan they gave, and even though they made money, and even though they testified for Trump and said they would do business with him again, that doesn't matter because Letitia James, an attorney general that ran on the promise of bringing down Donald Trump, says that Trump overvalued his properties because he should have used the tax-assessed value of his properties. And because he didn't, he used different values. He overinflated those, which means he got a lesser interest rate, which means that the government of New York needs to punish Trump as to dissuade other people, even though there hasn't someone financially harmed with this fraud. There wasn't. The banks aren't suing for recompense. There's no criminal charge. But $500 million needs to be paid punitively to the state of New York as a symbol to everyone else to not use values for your property that are over the tax-assessed value. Got it? And I mentioned this on Tim Pool. Everybody out there who is an average person who owns a home or any sort of property that has ever gotten a loan with it, including a mortgage, understands that probably 80%, if not more of the time, the tax-assessed value of your piece of property is a lower number than the fair market value of your property or the retail value of your property. And the mortgage and the loan is almost always based on the retail market value, the fair market value. In other words, now I've heard that things could vary state to state. In my state of Pennsylvania, I'll just give you a hypothetical. Let's say someone purchases a home for $100,000. Most of the people I know don't have $100,000 in cash. They're working 9 to 5 blue-collar jobs. So how does it work? You get pre-approved for a mortgage, right? They'll give you sort of a dollar amount idea. You're approved for $150,000. Then you find a house and submit it to your mortgage company. They'll look at the assessed value, make a decision, see the price you're paying. If they find that acceptable, they will give you money to purchase the house. You'll probably have to provide some down payment or something like that. But they'll give you money, whether it be the actual value, a little less, a little more. Then for me, things are like escrowed in, like my homeowner's insurance and things like that. Then I pay, my mortgage is a 10-year mortgage, I think, or 15-year mortgage, or 10, I don't know. Then I pay every month, same payment every month. It's a fixed rate, and that's it. That's how it works. So let's say the home that I was buying was $100,000. The tax-assessed value might be $60,000. In other words, when I have to pay property taxes, the amount that the home is valued at for those purposes are $60,000. So let's say the property tax I pay 1% of that. That would be $600. Is what I would owe at the end of the year for property tax. See? What I said on Tim Pool's show is, what they're saying is, every single person that you know that's gotten a mortgage like that used the fair market value and got a mortgage based on that number, has committed fraud. Because they should only have been allowed to get a mortgage for the tax-assessed value. We'll get to what the difference between the values were. Quick hit meme. Why does it matter? Before we get to the values, can you tell me why it matters? Why would it matter? For example, same scenario. Let's say the tax assessed value of my property is $5,000. It wouldn't matter if they changed the rates for the loan. The question is it fraud? So you tell me, for me, and so we'll get back to why I'm discussing this, right? So, when I'm discussing with someone, such as Hutch today, and they say, it's fraud to have two different values for your home. This is what he was saying. And to use a high value when it comes to getting a loan, and using a low value when it comes to getting taxes. That's fraud. The scale of the fraud when determining what the penalty should be might make a difference, but we need to start with a standard. What is the law? What are we considering fraud? That's the issue. If you were good faith, that's what you would do. You would say, this is the legal standard. This is what I believe the legal standard should be. The legal standard should be whatever your tax assessed value is, that's the value of your home. And if you get a loan for more than that tax assessed value, you've committed fraud. Okay. And that's what Hutch was saying. The problem is, and I got him to admit that very early, when I then took him through the rabbit hole of, because he doesn't understand, because he's never bought a home and probably never talked to anyone that owned a home, that would mean that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in this country have committed fraud. Because almost everyone who has a home that got a mortgage used the fair market value and not the tax assessed value, and that value is higher. That would mean every single one of those people committed fraud. Every single one. Then the question becomes, why are we only charging one person? Yeah, I would say it's millions, probably hundreds of millions of people in the past 40 years. And we're just charging one for it. Just one. In fact, there is a better than not chance that at least 50% of your favorite Democratic politicians did the same thing. Joe Biden probably did the same thing. His home in Delaware probably at one point had a mortgage. That mortgage was probably based on the fair market value and not the tax assessed value. That means that Joe Biden committed the same crime that Donald Trump did. Now, the scale of it might be different. The penalty you would push for, maybe he wouldn't be $500 million, maybe it would only be $1 million. Nonetheless, why weren't charges brought? Why wasn't an investigation conducted? And you can see. Now, I could guess what quick hit memes political persuasion is. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but my guess is quick hit meme is a Trump hater. Because that's what they're going to, this is the way it goes, right? So we start first, a good faith person first starts, what is the standard? Okay, this is fraud. Then when you point out, just like I did with Hutch and walk them through, okay, that would mean millions of people have committed fraud and we're only going after Trump. Then what he'll do is exactly what quick can mean. But what's the difference? How much? What was the difference? How much is the difference? How much was the difference? $50 million. Oh my God, $50 million. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. Okay, what's the amount of overvaluing that's allowed that we say, okay, that's not fraud? But then once we get to a certain dollar, can you tell me, quick hit meme? Can you tell me? Go ahead, Quickie. Tell me, in your persuasion, what's the overvaluing? What's the difference between the fair market value and the tax assessed? What percentage of difference before you consider it fraud? Because the difference seems very important to you. So what's the difference? Before I give you the number, you apparently don't know. So you tell me what the difference. 10%? 20%? 100%? 1,000%? 10,000%? Right. Does everyone see? Can you see quick hit memes? Now, I don't know if he just isn't following the conversation. I would say more likely he's a Trump hater. He can't give an answer. He can't. They can't do it. What did I say they'd default to at the end? Exactly what Trump did is what's bad. That's exactly what the crime is. The exact situation Trump did is what's a crime, and that's it. That's what's bad. The other stuff's not bad. What Trump did exactly is... And no two things are ever exactly alike. No two things are ever exactly alike. And so therefore, you can see there's never a double standard because no two things are ever exactly right. And what Trump does is uniquely, I'm sorry, average homeowners have a place called Mar-a-Lago? Oh, they don't? Oh, then it's not exactly the same. There we go. Hey, quick hit meme. Thanks so much. We're going to let you go, man. I'm just going to stop. Does everyone see? You get it? Does everyone see what I'm saying? And again, I thank so much that people like Quick Hit Meme come in here. I do. I thank so much that there are people like Hutch that put this out there. I think that there are people like DJ Farmboy. I really do. Because I don't think average people understand who these people are. When you see, he can't do it. How hard would it be for him to be how hard would it for Quick Hit Meme to go, yeah, I think for me it would be fraud if it was over 50%. If the tax assessed value was 50% lower than the actual loan he got, I think I would consider that fraud. How hard would it be? He can't do it. He can't do it. Cannot do it. Just waiting for me to say, well, the tax assessed value of Mar-a-Lago was $100,000 and Trump said it was worth $200,000. Then he could go, yeah, well, that explains it. That's why he was charged. That explains it. Yeah. Those numbers, oh boy, that explains it. Yep, that's it. There you go. And then if I was like, actually, those numbers were incorrect. Actually, he said Mar-a-Lago was worth $150,000, but it was only $100,000. Oh, well, that explains. Yep, that number's legit. Yep, it doesn't matter. I can pull any two numbers out of my ass, and if Quick Hit Meme thinks that those are legitimate numbers, he'll say, well, that explains it. Yep, that amount right there that's what's fraud. Yep, $500 million fine. Yeah. Yep, that's it. Makes sense. Okay, so Quick Hit Meme, your argument is if you get a loan out for the fair market value and that fair market value is even $1 more than the tax evaluated number that you've committed fraud, that's your answer? That's fine. I'll give you the numbers if you tell me that's what your answer is. That was Hutch's answer. That's your answer? Your standard is it's fraud if a person gets a loan out that's even $1 more than the tax evaluated number. That's your claim. I know you're not just typing yes because you would have typed it already. So you're typing something lengthy out or you're not responding. I'm going to go to the restroom real quick while we wait for Quick Hate Meme to type his paragraph here. No comment. Yeah. Okay, he doubled down. He was unable to just answer clearly. It's another thing. It's a pet peeve of mine. Like, notice, by the way, when you saw me debate Hutch the other day, he would say something, I'd answer yes or no, and then I would explain myself. And it's a sign of people that aren't being good faith, that are unwilling to just do that. So, for example, when I said, oh, so you're saying if it's $1 over, it's fraud, he could say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he won't. He'll repeat himself. That way he's being intentionally ambiguous. No, I see the message. I do. That way when I go on to explain, okay, that means almost every single person that's gotten a mortgage has committed fraud. You could then later say, I didn't say yes. Now, what Hutch was claiming, and what's the tax assessed values for Mar-a-Lago over the years that were being looked at were $18 million to $27 million for Mar-a-Lago. Now, you can get empty lots next to Mar-a-Lago that are up for sale for like $20-30 million without any property on, without any buildings on it right now. But we're supposed to believe that Trump's Mar-a-Lago property is worth less than that. That's what we're told to believe. Convict them all. Right, so then you'll admit there's selective prosecution. Why aren't they convicting them all? Literally everyone I know that owns a house did. Probably every Democrat, 80% of Democrats in Congress have done the same thing. Why no charges? Huh. I bet Letitia James herself has committed that crime. Judge Ernagon, or however you say his name. Now, quick hit meme like Hutch. In fact, is this Hutch? It might be Hutch making the same arguments, right? Didn't know. Hutch didn't know. So let's go through some of these exchanges. Oh, my computer's going to overheat, but we'll try her. Mar-a-Lago's value was assessed by Palm Beach County based on the club's income. I said that's not true. Well, it's true. There are problems with Trump not declaring it couldn't be sold as a residency would lower the value. The tax assessed value was not just based on income, in my understanding. The problem is the court seeming to assert that the tax assessed value would be the real sale value, which is insane. This would mean that every single homeowner who ever got a mortgage for more than the tax assessed value of the home, which is almost all of them, had committed a crime. It's a clear case of selective prosecution. Hutch says, your understanding is wrong. The reason Trump agreed to change Mar-a-Lago into a social club was because he couldn't afford the yearly taxes. Now, the problem is this does say that the $37 million tax assessed value is based on the annual net operating income. I don't believe that's exclusively true. I don't think that they literally just say how much money did it make, then we put it into this calculation each year and that's the tax assessed value. That probably has a lot to do with the assessed value, but I'm assuming that the property itself also factors into that number as well. He says you can't change your property to a social club in order to reduce your tax liability, thus losing the resale value of the property, then turn around and value your property for $1 billion when you apply for a loan. I said then it would also be fraud for anyone who represents the value of their home more than the tax assessed value. In other words, almost every single homeowner who has a mortgage. Regardless of how the tax assessed value came to be, using it as the standard for the value for which it's legally allowed to be borrowed against is insane. He says, is the average mortgage holder using their personal property as a social club to reduce their tax liability? It's not insane. Because of that agreement, was able to reduce his liability substantially for 2 decades. That's why he signed that deal. I said, no, that's changing the issue. The problem you have outlined is that it is fraud to claim one value of a home for tax reasons and then another higher one when valuing property for a loan. That would be almost every homeowner with a mortgage. If the argument wants to be he owes more in taxes, fine. But fining him $500 million because he valued it higher than the tax assessed value is insane, which, by the way, the banks were okay with, which the banks got paid and were happy with the arrangement. And all of this was done by a prosecutor who ran on the promise of taking down Trump. He says the average homeowner does not overvalue their real estate by hundreds of millions of dollars many times. Now, notice what's going on here. What he's doing is he's now making a scale argument. So the original argument was the principle. We're saying if you have two different valuations for your home, it is a fraud. That's what he's agreeing to, yes. Then he says, but the average, even though the average homeowner, that would mean the average homeowner has committed fraud. He says, but they haven't committed fraud to this extent. That's not the argument. I say, again, changing the point. The scale may be different, but your claim is valuing your property above the taxed assessed value is fraud. That would mean millions of Americans. Just admit you hate Trump and are fine with selective prosecution against him. He says he wasn't prosecuted for that. He was fined $450 million. He's not the first person to be fined for such fraud. Now, I don't know, not really interested in the semantics. I believe prosecution can result in a fine. It's not a point worth arguing. Some semantic bullshit. I said, no one has been fined near these levels. Show me the case. And again, it goes to the point. This would mean every homeowner should be fined as opposed to prosecuted. Brief statement here. People say this a lot. There's been other cases. Show me one. Show me a case where the bank agreed that they were happy with the arrangement, that they would be happy to do business again, that they were paid in full with interest, and we charged someone. We gave them a fine. Show me that case, and then show me that fine approaching $500 million. Go ahead. Now, we have other real estate moguls like, what's his name, Kevin O'Leary, that's like, yeah, literally every real estate developer does the same shit. No one's ever charged for this stuff. No one ever. Just Trump. Just happens to be by an attorney general who literally ran on the promise of, we're going to take Trump down. But they keep saying, I hear it over and over. Yeah, cases like this. Yep, there's been tons of cases like it. Can you show me one? The argument isn't all homeowners do it, it's wrong, or all homeowners do it, it's okay. The argument is, why is there selective prosecution? That's the argument. The argument isn't, should failing to register as a foreign lobbyist be a crime or not be a crime? The argument is, why is it only a crime when Trump's team does it? The argument isn't mishandling classified documents, should it be a crime or not be a crime? The argument is, why is it only a crime when Trump's team does it? The argument is deleting subpoenaed evidence a crime or not a crime? The argument is, why is it only a crime when Trump people do it? That's the issue. That's what's going on. The amount matters for the penalty phase. Now, the truth is, to answer your question, no, it's not a crime. It's not fraud. Everyone's known forever that fair market value... Imagine how this would work, right? Imagine the world, the way it would work, right? So let's just say, apparently you're not a homeowner, never attempted to buy a home. Okay, fine. Just take me at face value when I say this. Almost every house around here... In fact, I found evidence today that said, on average, the fair market value, what you'll actually pay for a house, is usually 20 to 40% higher than the tax assessed value. 20 to 40% higher. Now, this means, let's say that I'm going to try to negotiate with a home seller, right? And I walk through the home with my wife and my son, and I'm like, I love your house here. Oh, yeah. They're talking me through it, and I'm like, well, I notice you're selling it for $100,000. But the tax assessed value is only $60,000. So I'm willing to pay you $60,000. You know what the person's going to say to me? Right. Out the door, buddy. Nope. See ya. So how would that person ever then be able to sell their home in my neck of the woods where there aren't rich people? That would mean, effectively, what this system would do would mean that anyone who needs a loan or mortgage to buy a home no longer will be able to do so. Rich people will now exclusively be homeowners, which is already trending that way. But the policy that seems to be suggested here would make things infinitely worse for lower and middle class people, because you would literally be incapable of getting a mortgage. Because you would be like, well, I can only get a mortgage for $60,000, but the homeowner's not going to sell this property for a $40,000 loss. So now I have to come up with $40,000. There is no problem with the current system of the assessors come out once every 5-10 years, depends on your state. They put a value down for the property. Then you want to sell your house, and that's usually a considerably higher number that you're selling your house than the tax assessed value. At least in my state of Pennsylvania, that's the way it works with almost everyone. Yeah, isn't it amazing the people on the left that supposedly care about poor people literally cheering for a system that will make it impossible for any poor person to ever buy a home? Impossible. No, the law in New York never says that the law doesn't make any such claim whatsoever. It doesn't say what the value of the home, this is the specific number you need to use as the value for the home. It doesn't say that ever. That's just what Letitia James and the judge came up with. So in other words, in every other home buyer that in history, I can't find one other case like this. There has never been a charge for fraud that used the actual value of the home, the tax assessed value. Now this is going to matter because when they're assessing the fine, the amount of the fine is so huge because they're saying, well, Trump got these loans for a decade or would have been paying back on these loans for a decade. And he valued the house at $600 million, but actually we think the tax test value was $18 million. That means it was a 2,800% over evaluation over 10 years, compound the interest, $500 million. It wouldn't matter if Trump brought me on as a lawyer. It was an attorney general and judge that hated Trump. That's the whole point. It didn't matter the patent absurdity of it. Based on the same logic, Quick Hit Meme, if it's overturned on appeal, will you say, oh, well, geez, if it was overturned on appeal so easy, what was that prosecutor and judge doing? Will you say that? Notice these appeals do it. Well, if that's what the attorney general and the judge said, well, that must be the case. Let's go back. So he says there's a case. I said, show me the case. He can't. He says, Rob, stop. You're pretending like every homeowner routinely does what Trump does, and you're flat out wrong. The average homeowner is not using their property as a social club, enjoying tax breaks because of that, then ignoring the agreed about valuation terms when applying for loans. I said, Hutch, stop. You're pretending like this isn't selective prosecution because you hate Trump and you're fine with it. If valuing your property above the tax assessed value is fraud, then it's fraud no matter who does it. You know you can't defend it, so you've given up and are now just pleading. I'll debate you any time on this. He then says, so you're saying it's normal for homeowners to ignore the assessed value of their property when applying for loans in order to obtain a larger amount. Is that correct? Yes! Then Hutch says, Rob, if you are lying to banks about the value of your property, wildly inflating it, while simultaneously claiming to the IRS that your property is worth substantially less, that is indeed fraud, and I'm calling the cops. You get that? So this dude who's on here saying, this is a solid case. Yep, Trump has it coming. He had no clue that there are different values and assessments for homes. And almost every single homeowner in the country uses the high values when they're trying to value their property to sell or to get a loan, and uses the low value when it comes to paying taxes. In fact, I have no say in what the tax value of my home is. The county assessor does it. He had no clue. And then says, well, if you're doing that, Rob, I would call the cops on you. Now, I could go on. Well, I will. There's a little more. I say, one second. I say, okay, that's literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. Your statement proves your ignorance. And just to be clear, if it turns out that Biden or any other Democrat has a mortgage for more than the tax assessed value of their home, you will admit not charging them would be a double standard, correct? Spoiler alert, he won't. Then let's go back here. Watch this video, he says. I said, look, I understand you're getting wrecked, so you want me to watch someone else's video. Should I just respond, posting a video of constitutional law scholar Jonathan Turley, who thinks the case is egregious? You argued using value above tax assessed is a fraud. That is the norm, which would mean this is a selective prosecution. You can't defend your statement. I'll debate you anytime on this. He then doubles down, claiming a high value when applying for a loan and a low value when you're filing taxes is fraud. Are you disputing this? Are you seriously just seriously, read that. Let me read that statement again. Honestly, am I wrong here? Am I wrong? Does anyone, let me just ask this. Is anyone watching a homeowner? Any of you, can you just type yes if you're a homeowner? If you're a homeowner, just type yes. Or if you own any sort of property or land, just type yes. You got face. Gizmo. Lineback Tud. All right, TL, good. So for those of you that are homeowners, I'm not I would be absolutely shocked. All evidence I've seen points to the contrary. Everything I've ever known in life shows me to the contrary. When you go to value when you're putting your home up as an asset, either to sell or to put up as collateral for a loan in the form of a mortgage or any other loan, you're using a number that's sort of a fair market value number. That number is usually higher than the tax assessed value. Yes? Is this not common knowledge? Everyone who owns a home knows this? Right? Imagine being so confident that you're literally like, wait a minute, you're telling me that it's common practice? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. That is the normal procedure. And it doesn't faze him. It doesn't faze him. No, he doesn't go, oh shit. Wow, that's kind of crazy. I guess I was wrong about that. Yeah, that does seem odd. That my interpretation was that every homeowner in the country is committing fraud. Nope, just doubles down. Well, not as much as Trump did. And this gets back to the point I was making at the beginning. The reason you get them to give their standard first is because it shows you how bad faith they are. Because then he'll immediately switch to, oh, so you're saying that they overvalued their home 2,800%? Right. Exactly, Lineback. Exactly. Now that's a substantial difference. Fair market value, $365,000. Tax assessed, $225,000. I mean, just off the top of my head, that's what, like 30, 40% difference? That's substantial. It's a substantial difference. Let's keep going. You'll see how this ends. I says, yes, that's what I'm claiming. The tax assessed value is almost considered lower than the retail value. The retail value is what you normally use, or fair market value. Then look what he immediately does. So he says, basically his stance here is everybody commits fraud. Okay. I'm like, well, that's insane. And then he immediately goes to the discrepancy between the assessed value of Trump's home between $18 million and 27.6 million, and Trump's valuation between 426 and 612 was 2,300%. Do you understand why? There were deed restrictions placed on Mar-a-Lago to deal the cut with the county in the 90s. Not allowed to value the property as a regular private residence. He had to value the property as a social club. He ignored those restrictions for 10 years when applying for loans and offering proposed value Mar-a-Lago, massively inflating its assets. Order to secure better interest rates, he recognized those deed restrictions when filing his taxes, paying the taxes substantially lower valuations. Massive, massive fraud! So again, are you really claiming that every homeowner does what Trump did here? It's 60%. Okay, Alley Cat, yeah. Not very good with math. You see? So after, he can no longer defend his stance that if you use a high number for your loan and a low number for your taxes, that's fraud. Can no longer defend that because that means that almost every homeowner. So then you would have to argue selective prosecution. So then he has to say, oh, so you're saying that every homeowner is only allowed to sell their home as a private business or as a business when it comes to taxes, but as a residence and it's a 2,800 increase? You're saying that's what every homeowner does? No, Hutch, that's not what I'm saying, you fucking idiot. Not at all. What I'm saying is you will always default to, no, exactly what Trump did is the problem. That's the problem. That's the only thing that should be a crime. That's right. Mental gymnastics to justify Orange Man bad. I say again, this is always the answer you Trump haters use to justify the double standard in going after him. Quote, the only things that should be charged are the exact things Trump did in every case. Those will never be the same as other cases, therefore there's no double standard. You literally just said you would call the cops on people that use a low value for taxes but a high value for loans with their property. That is the norm. This means, according to you, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of homeowners are guilty of fraud. And so now you backtrack because you can't defend your stance and are again going back to talking about scale. He says, did you read what I wrote? Or are you on autopilot? Read it again. That is what you were saying is common practice for homeowners. No, I read what you wrote, and I answered it. You were trying to claim the exact situation Trump did isn't replicated by most homeowners. Therefore, it's not selective prosecution. This is the same tired playbook always used by Trump haters, as I said. Good faith people would start with a law or standard, such as, quote, using a value higher than tax assessed value for property to obtain a loan is fraud. Then you would say, yes, anyone who commits fraud should be held legally accountable. But you aren't good faith. Instead, your agenda is to take Trump down by any means necessary, and you are fine with the two-tier justice system to go after him. So you will claim your standard is one thing, and then when shown, that would mean hundreds of thousands of people, probably including many Democrats who are Trump's opponents, should also be charged. You just backtrack to, no, what Trump did is uniquely bad, and that's why he should be charged, and it's not selective. Imagine hating a politician so bad that you're willing to sacrifice your integrity in such a blatant way to go after him. Again, offers on the table to debate this. Now, there's one other thing that I would like to show. I say, you see, this is what Trump haters resort to. First, Hutch claimed it was fraud to use a higher value than tax assessed value in a property to obtain a loan. Once shown this is the standard, he now resorts to saying, well, it's apparently only fraud if it's exactly 2,300% higher than the tax assessed value. Truly remarkable. He says, straw man, name a better duo. I said, show me once saying it's normal to overvalue at 2,300%. So he says, Rob is saying it's normal for homeowners to come up with a market value that ignores deed restrictions and lands at 2,300%. I said, show me once ever saying it's normal to overvalue at 2,300%. You can't because, are you ready for this? You're straw manning me. And as I've shown time and time again today, you originally claimed it was fraud to get a loan based on a property value higher than tax assessed. I showed you that's actually the norm. You then moved the goalpost and now want to talk about the scale. 2,300%. Because you've lost the argument in what the standard should be for what is fraud. When I call you out on this, you just bemoan it's straw manning because you can't defend your position. Again, I offer to debate you anytime I'm available. He says, how is the scale of fraud not relevant? If you acknowledge that not normal for people to overvalue at 2,300, why are we having this discussion? I said the scale is irrelevant as to whether or not there is fraud and what the standard should be and what constitutes fraud. He says, So if a homeowner uses an appraisal that's 10% higher than the assessed value, then it's no different from a homeowner that uses a value that's 23% higher. Which I respond with so you're saying, he says, what's your serious answer? I said, is murdering one person the same as murdering 10? Nope, but it's still murder. Bottom line, you've admitted that anyone that uses a value higher than the tax assessed value for the loan has committed fraud. You even suggested you would call the cops on them. And yet that is the normal procedure. Your position is absurd. He says, like I said, I'm strawmanning. And he highlights, while substantially claiming that your property simultaneously claiming it's substantially less. To which I say, define substantially. So now what he's saying is, oh no, it's only a fraud if it's substantially. The values are substantially different. Okay, define substantially. Now remember, he says I'm strawmanning him when I say originally he said if you use two values, one higher, one lower, that's fraud. And then he backtracked to, well, if it's 2,300%, he said, that's strawmanning me. If you had to guess, when I ask Hunch to define substantially, how do you think he'll define it? Just guess a percentage he'll come up with to say substantially. Can anyone guess what he'll say? Anyone take a guess how he's going to define? Because he's going to say, oh, I didn't say all homeowners. I said only those. Right, Face got it. Here's what he says. You ready? I said define substantially. I don't know, 2,300%. You see? It's fraud. Exactly what Trump did is fraud. That's it. But I strawmanned him when I said that. And he doesn't even realize. This is what I'm saying. It's just like Quick Hit Meme was doing. They don't realize that what they're doing is they make the point. They prove everything that we say about them that I know about. They prove is you just let them talk. It was like when I talked to Hutch and I was like, there are people that are all sorts of inappropriate sexual conversations with children. I haven't heard that, he says. Ridiculous. That's crazy. I went to school, they taught us about masturbation when I was 9 years old. Wait, what? You just have to let them talk. You just have to let them go. They'll tell on themselves. We'll finish it out. I said, thanks for proving my point. I wasn't strawmanning when you said this. Also, he also said this about high property loans. Oh, sorry. He said, claiming high value when applying for a loan and low value when you file your taxes is fraud. Notice he doesn't use the word substantial there. I said, yes, you define substantial as 2,300. As I said, you keep saying straw man, but it's because you have nothing else to say. Define substantial. Define what you mean when you said it's fraud to value your property for high and for a loan, but low for taxes. He says, holy F, bro, let's turn it back on you, mate. Is 2,300 substantial or not? I say, no, let's not turn it around. I asked you to define substantial. You chose to define it as I said you would. Trump's bad and what he did was bad. That's all you have. Define substantial. Define what you mean when you say using a high value for loan and low value for taxes is fraud. And then we meme our way through at the end. Cope all you want, bro. He's still on the hook for $450 million. Substantial fraud. And nothing's going to change that, Smiley. I said, couldn't have proven my point better if you tried. We know. Orange man bad. Take him down by any means necessary. And he says, Orange man fucked. GG. No R-E. And that's the most honest thing Hutch said in that whole interaction. That's really, at the end, he's being honest there. Doesn't matter. Trump's got to pay $500 million. Boom! That's all that matters, dude. Bro, he's fucked. Right. Doesn't give a shit about rule of law. Doesn't know the even bare minimal. Has no clue. Doesn't matter. Orange man bad. Take him down. That's it. Well, one of the things they suggested was Trump could probably immediately sell Mar-a-Lago for probably $500 million. Then wouldn't that disprove the whole case? Now, there's a reason that it matters that they use the tax assessed value, because what we're talking about is what the proposed penalty should be. For example, let's say that we say the law says that there is a speed limit. And if you go over that limit, technically you've committed a violation. And there are penalties for committing that violation. So let's say the speed limit's 65 mile an hour and you get pulled over going 75 mile an hour. You've broken the law. You have. There is a penalty that's recommended for that, right? Fine, maybe $300 with all the fees. It's kind of outrageous with all the fees attached and stuff. $300 something. But imagine that someone runs on that your local attorney general is like, I don't like quick hit meme. I don't like him or her. Don't like him. Vote for me and I'll take them down. Then they just watch quick hit meme every day and they catch them going 5 miles over the speed limit. And they say, okay, your fine is $200,000. And then someone like me would be like, well, that's ridiculous. That's excessive. Sure, I guess that this was a violation of the law, but $200,000 for someone who told us this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to use my position to take that person down. Then $200,000? And the left would be like, oh, you don't think it's a crime? That's not a crime, what they did? Oh, I didn't even know that, Wolf's Rain. I just thought it was hidden dyslexically trying to type the N-word. So the question is this something that deserves punishment because there was fraud? That's question one. I would argue no, because there is no victim. For example, if we say that there is a victim who is owed money because the interest rates weren't as high, who would that be? If there is a victim in this case, and you say, the crime is, if the property wasn't valued as much, the loan would have still been given, but the interest rate would have been higher, then who's out money? Not the taxpayers, they're not out a dime. Who's out money? Who would be owed the money? Who would have been receiving those interest payments? The bank, right. That's who would have been receiving. They're fine. They're like, nope, we're happy. Why wouldn't the money that's being collected by the state be handed over to the bank? Why do they get to keep it? Why does the state of New York get to keep the money? Isn't that the bank's money? Right? So where's the fraud? Now what they'll argue is, well, because then he got a lower interest rate, which meant that other people, if it had been a higher interest rate, the bank would have got more money and then gave out more loans. So someone somewhere was denied a loan because the bank wasn't able to charge Trump an interest rate that was higher. So the bank wasn't able to make as much money. So then Joe Schmo over here was denied a loan, which he should have got. That's argument one that they're making. Argument two is it's punitive. That we're trying to set the example that people can't do this type of shit. Well, you could say the same argument about anyone then that used a number over the tax assessed value. We're going to nip this in the bud right now. We're going after robnoerr here. His retail value of his home was $1,000 more than the tax assessed. We're going to $10,000 for you, Mr. Noor. That'll send a signal to everyone to stop this shit. I don't know about that crazy coke. I would assume they pay taxes on that. Yeah, but the bank didn't fail, and the bank was happy with the arrangement. And we shouldn't pay for it. That's number one. Number two, if the argument is, as seems to be, Trump was scheming the tax man by claiming that his property was not residential, when really it was, he was trying to sell it. Okay, then charge him back taxes. Simple enough. Tell us what the assessed value of the home is. That's what he should have been paying taxes on. Now, I've looked into this. Potentially, based on what value they would come up with, that would mean Trump would be looking at owing $10 to $20 million to the government. Why didn't they do that? No, it's not a crime. For example, quick hit meme, if I choose to give you $450 tomorrow for no reason, is it a crime? If the bank chooses to give money to someone at an interest rate that they choose, it's not a crime. If the bank says we were defrauded because we were lied to, then you potentially have a case of fraud, which is a crime. But they're not saying that. Let me give you another example. Let's say I go to a dealership to buy a new Dodge Journey, which happens to be the car I have. And they say, well, MSRP for this car is $20,000, but I'm going to give you the nice face discount, $7,000. Are they allowed to do that? Why can't a private business decide to do whatever the hell they want? The government should have the right to say, we've been defrauded. We feel that the tax assessment was too low based on promises you made to us that you didn't fulfill. Different argument. Now the victim of the fraud is the government, is the taxpayer. Okay, what's the back taxes that he owes? That's a more legitimate argument. Right, it's about because the bank gave the loan in New York. Right. So theoretically, the Florida state government could say, we feel like we've been cheated on taxes. Your property's actually worth $500 million, so you owe us $20 million in taxes. And the New York government could say, actually, we feel your property's only worth $20 million. Therefore, you owe us $500 million in interest for this loan you got at a lower rate. We'll get to that, Todd Sullivan. So that's number two. If there's a victim that the government's entitled to sue for, it would be the taxpayer, it would be the government, which would mean that he owes more in taxes. I don't know, Ocean Free Salt. Number three, what role does the bank have in providing their own assessment? No, the tax evaluation is not based on fair market value. No. If I call the bank up and say, hey man, I got this nice house, I got this nice car, I'd like to borrow $10 million. I think this house and car is worth $10 million. You think the bank's going to be like, okay, here you go, sir. And it turns out my house and car combined are probably worth $80,000. And I say, I take that money and I go and I gamble it all and I go, shit. I guess, sorry. I lost it all. I guess you guys got to take my house and car. And they go, wait a minute. This is the first time looking at this house and car. Turns out it's only worth $100,000. Whoopsie daisy. You think the bank's going to go for that deal? You think they will? You think they'll just, sure. You think the bank's just going to be like, yeah, here's $500 million. Hey, here you go. We're not even going to check into it. Nope. Whatever people tell us their shit's worth, we just say, yep. Sounds good to us. You think that's what banks are up to? Do you think there's even a chance that the bank didn't do some sort of due diligence to look into the values of these properties? You think there's even a chance? Don't you think that the bank would have went, wait, holy shit, wait, that property's only worth $18 million? Whoa, really? Wow. That's incredible. Don't you think that would have came out at the trial? Instead, they were like, no, we're perfectly happy with the arrangement. Why? If they were lied to, do you think they'd be upset? Particularly if they could be like, well, we're suing. They would have a civil case. Why wouldn't they do it? This place was evaluated, as I already said, based on a criteria that the tax assessed value was looking at the place not as a residential home, but as a place of business. And so they were trying to come up with an assessed value of what they thought it would be worth. The problem is I'm about to read you in an article, is there are no other places like Mar-a-Lago. There aren't these big social clubs. So they actually have no fucking clue how to evaluate it. The actual tax assessors admitting we just don't know. There's another problem. How much is a baseball worth? I don't even know. $5, $10 buy baseball? So if I sold you a baseball, $5, $10, depending on condition, right? But what if I said, this is a special baseball? You see, this ball happens to be the one that Albert Pujols hit to send the Cardinals to the World Series. I think it's worth $1,000. Am I allowed to do that? Does the value of that ball increase based on the circumstances? Now, objectively, the material to create that ball is only worth $5. Is the value we've put on it is the fair market value. But is the circumstances around the ball allowed to inflate the value? Yay? No? If I committed fraud? If I insure that? If I get a loan based on that? If I committed fraud? What about a property owned by arguably the most famous man in the world? Does that increase the value? No, it's not like apples to cinder blocks. Do you think the value of Mar-a-Lago is inflated based on who owns it? For example, you could take, what's the name of Elvis's home? What was it? It was Graceland, right? Probably objectively, the actual buildings and the property is probably worth one value, but it's probably 10, if not 100 times more valuable than that because that's Elvis's home. How do you set the value? The last thing to say about it is this. Yeah, I remember here in Pennsylvania, did you ever watch the movie Silence of the Lambs? I remember a couple years ago, the house that Clarice goes into, that Buffalo Bill lives in, that all the killings going on and, the torture and stuff, that house was legitimately for sale. And I'm sure it sold for more than what you would normally pay for that house because it was in a movie. And some fan of, horror movies or something probably was like, yes, I'll buy that, it'll be cool. Let's say that we say at the end of the day, he committed fraud, all of this stuff. They're not going after him criminally. They're going to assess a fine. How do you determine what the fine should be? Right, because a fan would pay more, it's worth more. Exactly. Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. So if I go to the bank and I say, this is Babe Ruth's baseball, I want to get a loan for $10,000 based on it, and they give it to me, and I pay that money back, and the bank says, we're happy with that arrangement, the government doesn't get to come in and say, no, baseballs are only worth $5. That's right. It's the same with Alex Jones. You're absolutely right, EOD. Yep. So, how do we assess what the punishment should be? What's the fine? How would you assess? Well, what did they try to say? Well, we took a formula where we took the actual value of what the house should have been valued at, the property should have been valued at, then what Trump claimed they were valued at, and we took the difference, and then we computed how that would have changed the interest rates. Then the difference in that interest rate versus the principal amount that was lended over the time period, and we come to $500 million. So that would imply that the impetus is on the state to have an accurate value of what the home would be. Correct? In other words, wouldn't the state be guilty of exactly what they're claiming Trump's guilty of if they lowballed the actual value of the home? In other words, let's say they would have said, we think Mar-a-Lago's worth $5. Therefore, Trump overinflated millions of percentages. Therefore, we think Trump owns trillions of dollars. Would that be legitimate? Anyone? Quick hit meme? Anyone? Is that legitimate? If they would have said Mar-a-Lago's worth $5. If not, why? Hopefully everyone would admit, like, well, of course that wouldn't be legitimate. Why is that illegitimate? Not interested in buying bots. Right. So you would say the impetus is on the state to have a remotely accurate actual value of the home. If they lowballed the value of the home, that is going to hugely inflate what Trump's fine would be. The irony, of course, being what they're accusing Trump of doing is overinflating his home for financial benefit. But if they are intentionally or grossly negligent in undervaluing his home for financial and political benefit, they would be guilty of the same thing. If the standard is the tax evaluated, that means that it's selective prosecution because literally every homeowner, or 90% of homeowners in the country, have committed the same crime as Trump. Doesn't matter if he lied about the numbers. Again, so let's go through this. Let's say that Trump did this. Let's say that Trump said, it's a 500-story home. I swear it, it's 500 stories. And I'm allowed to sell it as a private residence, even though I know I'm not. Even though I know it's a social club. And therefore, I estimate the value of this property at $5 million. But that's considerably below the tax assessed value. Did he still commit fraud? He still lied, right? He lied about the height of the house. He lied about being able to sell it as a private residence. But he lowballed the number. Is that fraud? What's the penalty? Does the bank now owe him money? Does the state now owe him money? Because he would have had a lower interest rate? I don't have slow mode on. It shouldn't. I'm reading all the. I don't know. That's the question. Is it fraud if he lied and then the end result is he lowballed the number? Is that fraud? Anyone? Thanks, Zens, for it. I appreciate it. Can anyone tell me if that's fraud? Did you ever hear about how people can't engage in hypotheticals? Quick hit meme proves the point. He didn't lowball. I'm asking if he did. If you're just say, if you would like to say, I don't have the intelligence to engage in hypotheticals. You could say that quick hit meme. We know as a lefty, totally get it. Get it. So I'll ask the question again. If you could try, if you have the mental capacity, quick hit meme, right? If he said it's a 500-story home and I could sell it as a private residence and therefore I estimate the value of my home at $5 million, did he commit fraud? Simple yes or no. Did you eat Bragg? Shh. All right. Quick hit meme. We're going to let you go now. Would you like to say any final words? I'm sorry I've wasted time. Does everyone see this? Does everyone see it? The meme is real. I'm glad that... Can you see it? Can you see the lefties that literally do not have the mental capacity to engage in a hypothetical? Can everyone else see it? Do you see what I'm talking about? But he didn't do that. What do you mean if that happened? It didn't happen. It didn't happen. You keep saying if this other thing happened, but it didn't. So I don't know. You keep saying I don't know what to say. It's a shame, too, because I try to engage in good faith. I might get hyperbolic, I might get animated, but I try to talk, especially to the people I disagree with, and I think I'm making solid points here and treating the argument somewhat clear. He can't do it. He can't do it. How hard would it be? Let me answer for him, right? You ready? Since I can't find any lefty who literally is either good faith enough or has the mental acumen to engage in the simplest of hypotheticals, can't do it, is impossible task. Trump hater, hypothetical? Huh? What? But it didn't happen. How can I guess what would happen if it didn't happen? So, let me try then. I'll turn my hat backwards. I'll try to be an actual good faith lefty answering questions since we can't get it here. Unfortunate. Ready? Would it be fraud if Trump misled on the statements or lied and said that the building was way taller and had way more square footage and that he could sell it as a private residence, but then he lowballed and only said $5 million? No, that wouldn't be fraud. Because in order for it to be fraud, he would have to harm someone with it. So he could lie and he could tell mistruths, but if he's only financially harming himself, then no, that wouldn't be fraud. Right. And why wouldn't that be fraud? You sort of said it there, because he has to be financially harming another group, the taxpayers, the government, the banks, or something like that. If he makes a bunch of wild accusations that are lies, but it doesn't financially benefit him or financially harm someone else, then it wouldn't be fraud. For example, if he says, I slept with every Playboy playmate in this bedroom, therefore the house is worth $5 million, and it turns out that's a blatant lie, it doesn't matter because he's undervaluing and harming himself financially. So he can tell those tall tales. You could say they're lies, but it wouldn't amount to fraud because in order for it to be fraud, someone had to be harmed other than himself. Everybody get that? Now, unfortunately, what I was trying to do was spell it out so people could understand that. Right? But you can't find a lefty that can understand a hypothetical or that can engage in good faith. So, just like the guy the other day, right? He wants to talk about climate change. Fine, let's talk about climate change. There's a consensus, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, let's start with this. Would you say the climate's always changing? I refuse the premise of the question. Okay, see ya. Because the point is, I'm trying to spell something out. I'm saying it for a reason. I'm not being gratuitous. No, I didn't time you out at all. Maybe someone else timed you out. I didn't. The point I was trying to make is, clearly you would have said, I guess it wouldn't be fraud because no one's harmed. And I say, right. So you have to prove, in order for it to be fraud, it's not enough to just have lies or misstatements. It also has to impact the bottom line to financially benefit himself and harm another. Yeah, no one touched. So then the question becomes, okay, then what's the actual value? Now, in every other case, the normal is, when applying for a loan based on property, we use what's the normal case? We talked about it forever tonight. This is the reason I was unable to get to it to Hutch. This is why it matters. It doesn't matter to say, so every homeowner in the country should be charged who used fair market value instead of tax assessed value. The point is, if the norm is using the fair market value, then that's the standard the court should have used. said, this is the fair market value of the home, and this is what Trump claimed. Here's the difference. That's going to be the extent of the fine. It would only be fraud if the fair market value is less than what Trump claimed. The extent of the fine would have to do with the difference of those two numbers. Instead, they took the asinine number of the tax assessed value, which we know is never done. Ever. In other words, in this one case, out of all the home loans and mortgages in this country, one time we had a person in Letitia James who ran on the promise of getting Trump, and she had a specific legal standard for him and him alone. But Rob, no, Rob, he lied. He lied, though. He lied and said that the properties were larger than they were. And he lied and said that he could sell them as a private residence when actually he couldn't. But we just went through that. That lie only is material to the case of committing fraud if it benefited him financially and harmed another. In other words, even if we could concede he lied, if that lie didn't affect the material fair market value of what Mar-a-Lago would actually sell for, then it doesn't matter. Certainly doesn't mean that he should be fined $500 million. Which brings us to this. We'll read the whole damn article. Associated Press. October 9th, 2023. Is Mar-a-Lago worth $1 billion? Trump's winter home valuations are at the court of his fraud trial. Fort Lauderdale. How much is Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago worth? That's been a point of contention after a New York judge ruled that the former president exaggerated the Florida property's value when he said it's worth at least $420 million and perhaps $1.5 billion. Siding with the judge's New York attorney general in a lawsuit accusing Trump of grossly overvaluing his assets, Judge Engoron found that Trump's consistently exaggerated Mar-a-Lago's worth. He noted that one Trump estimate of the club's value was 2,300% the times the Palm Beach County tax appraiser's valuation, which ranged for $18 million to $37 million. That's where Hutch gets the number. That's where they get the number because the judge said it's 2,300% higher. But Palm Beach real estate agents who specialize in high-end properties scoffed at the idea that the estate could be worth that little in the unlikely event that Trump ever sold. Wait a minute, you mean professional people that deal in real estate disagreed with this judge that it's only worth $17 million? How could that be, you might ask? Wait a minute. Hutch and Quick Hit Meme kept saying, oh, Trump lied. He look at that. Look at how much he grossly overevaluated. According to who? Well, we've already got him to concede that this seems to be the only case that I've ever heard of in history where they said that the mortgage value is the tax assessed value of the home. It's the only case in history. So what do the professionals that deal in real estate at the place say? The people that are actually involved in real estate that are selling homes, what do they say? It's laughable how undervalued the judges used to get. Where you at, Quick Hit? Wow, didn't Quick Hit Meme already admit? Well, yeah, if the judge said the home was only worth $5, then Trump would have a case that this is absurd because that's clearly an undervaluation. So $17 million. Also a clear undervaluation. In fact, that would mean, as I mentioned before, that Judge Ernagon and Letitia James, who I again remind you, ran for office on the promise she was going to take down Trump, for the first time in history seemed to suggest that a mortgage could only be based on a tax-assessed value, and local real estate people say it's a fucking joke how much they lowballed. Then charged him $500 million. Stop drinking. No, I've drank myself from time to time. So let's keep going. Palm Beach real estate agents who specialize in high-end properties. You can't make this so far. Again, the AP scoffed at the idea that the estate could be worth that little in the unlikely event Trump ever sold. Ludicrous, Agent Lisa Pulitzer said about the judge citing the county's tax appraisal as a benchmark. Homes a tenth of the size as Mar-a-Lago on a tiny island lots sell for that in the town of Palm Beach, a wealthy island enclave. Quote, The entire real estate community felt it was a joke when they saw that figure, said Pulitzer, who works for Brown Harris Stevens. The thing that would get snapped up for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, said Rob Thompson, owner of Waterfront Properties and a Mar-a-Lago member. There's zero chance that it's going to sell for $40 million or $50 million. In the ongoing trial over the lawsuit, though, what a private buyer might pay for the place like Mar-a-Lago isn't the only factor. What is Mar-a-Lago? Blah, 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 blah. Negotiations continued in 93. The town agreed he could turn the estate into a private club, giving him cash flow that he could use for maintenance. He built a ballroom, but signed away development rights. The agreement limits the club to 500 members. The initiation fee is $500,000 with annual dues of $20,000. Trump typically lives at Mar-a-Lago from October to May. So what is it worth? It's hard to say. The biggest problem is there are no comparable properties. No one builds mansions in Palm Beach like Mar-a-Lago anymore, and those that did exist were demolished long ago or broken up and turned into a museum. Trump, in an April deposition, justified his belief that Mar-a-Lago could be worth $1 billion by comparing it to the price of the Mona Lisa, or a painting by Renoir would command. The ultra-wealthy will pay premium to buy something that's one of a kind. Ella Baraka, chair of the Florida International University's Hollow School of Real Estate, agreed it's difficult to assess the value of any unique property. The fact that Trump owned Mar-a-Lago would likely increase its sale price. Oh, that's funny. Quick hit meme said that that's comparing apples to concrete. That if some celebrity owned it, it would increase its price. Let's see what, the chair of the Florida International University's Hollow School of Real Estate says. Quote, some people are going to argue that not everyone likes Trump. Some people would actually pay less because of that. But the high bidder is probably going to be a person who buys it because it belonged to Trump, Baraka said. Pulitzer said the rock bottom price for Mar-a-Lago would be $300 million. Thompson said at least $600 million. If over-billionaires got into a bidding war, they said, a sale of $1 billion or more would be possible. The much smaller Palm Beach compound, once owned by Kennedy political dynasty, sold for $70 million 3 years ago. So how did Palm Beach come up with such a low tax assessment? The county gives Mar-a-Lago its current value of taxation of $37 million based on its annual net operating income as a club, not on its resale value as a home or its reconstruction cost. In other words, they're admitting the tax assessed value is not what the resale value would be. It's one of 9 private clubs taxed this way. Again, the mortgage companies are never giving loans out based on the tax assessed value. They're giving it over the sale value. So why would this be the first time that they're legally... The bank's okay with the agreement. They say they'd like to do business again. But for the first time, an attorney general who ran on the promise of getting Trump is like, nah, this time we're going to say tax assessed value. Becky Robinson, the tax assessor spokesperson, said the method is used because private clubs are so rarely sold or built, making it impossible to set their tax rates by comparing them to similar properties. Mar-a-Lago's property tax bill will be $602,000 this year, county records show. U.S. Representative Jared Moskowitz, South Florida Democrat, wrote the county saying if Trump claims Mar-a-Lago is worth $1 billion, he should be taxed accordingly. If Mar-a-Lago had $1 billion assessed value, the property tax bill would be approximately $18 million. Great. Then charge him $18 million. By the way, that's not how it works probably for... I would love to see Jared Moskowitz's property, because surely then that would mean that if he had a mortgage out for more than the tax assessed value, that he would admit that he also should have to pay more in back taxes. Robinson said the county bases its assessment on the law and its formulas, not the value the owner claims. Why does it matter? In her lawsuit against Trump, New York Attorney General Letitia James argued that Mar-a-Lago was one of multiple assets Trump overvalued in financial statements given to banks and others. On those statements, Trump valued Mar-a-Lago as high as $739 million, a figure James said ignored deed restrictions requiring the property be used as a social club, not as a private home. Her lawyers have argued that in his financial statements, Trump should have valued Mar-a-Lago in the same way the county does, based on its club status. Trump's financial statements, the New York lawyers wrote, valued the club based on a false misleading premise of unrestricted residential plan lot that could be sold as a private home, which is clearly not the case. Trump's lawyers said no trickery is involved, and the banks probably didn't rely on his financial statements when determining whether to lend him the money. Now, can someone explain to me why we should use the tax assessed value in this case and the actual real estate people that are saying bare minimum price of $300 million, could be as high as $1 billion, depending on the bidding war? Thanks, Levin. There's a reason I went through this back and forth with Hutch, and I've done it over and over before, talking about the tax assessed value. There's a reason that standard matters. There's a reason that I got Hutch to admit that first, right? Is because they then have to argue, of course, the scale of what this isn't what they have to argue. I would agree that, of course, the scale would be different. For example, let's say that me and Quick Hit Mean both committed fraud, and my fraud was to the tune of $1 million, and Quick Hit Meme's fraud was to the tune of $5. Should my fine be higher than Quick Hit Meme's? Of course. No one would. Hutch kept saying, oh, you're saying that's what everyone overvalues, 2,300%. No, that's not what I'm saying. Of course, the scale of the punishment would be different. But the principle of is it fraud or not gets to the core question of when the government is assessing what the value of a home is to see whether or not fraud was committed, what is the mechanism that they come up with to assess that value? If the value is the tax assessed value, in other words, anything that isn't the tax assessed value, in the words of Hutch, is fraud, that means that the government is saying the tax assessed value is the standard that should be used. If that's the case, why can no one show me one other case in history where that's been the case? Show me. People keep saying it's happened. Let's see it. Where's it at? Yeah, that's right. The value's Orange Man. Right. Don't time people out. I don't know if he is or not. I don't care. Show me. That's the point. So when Quick Hit Memes saying, but what was the difference? What was the difference? What was the difference? That's not the question to start with. A good faith person would say, okay, we have this trial. We're considering this trial that we're saying this guy committed fraud. And the nature of the fraud is there were statements that were made that were untruth. But it's only fraud if it financially benefited him and harmed someone else. For example, it's not fraud if you say your car was once owned by, who wasn't in Seinfeld? John Voight. Remember when George bought John Voight's car? But then it turned out to be John Voight, the dentist, and not the actor. Anyways, that's not fraud to lie to people about that. It's fraud to lie and say your car was John Voight's car, and that's a lie, and then that causes you to financially benefit because of it. Then that could be fraud. But just making shit up isn't fraud. So then the question is, okay, we can't just say he told something that wasn't the truth, therefore fraud. And in order to assess a proper penalty, we need to know what the actual value of the home is. So what is the value that we're going to set? Go ahead, ask them. Engeron made this statement, was like, oh, Trump valued it higher than 2,300%. Then when he gets laughed out of the fucking public, because all these real estate people are like, what? Are you kidding me? He then released a statement where he was like, well, I didn't come up with that number. That's what the tax assessors came. Like, he clearly heard the repercussions and was like, whoa, I didn't come up with the number. But that's the number as the judge you're using to assess the fine. How can you justify that? Why is Trump the only person that that's happened to? Now, you look at the interaction, and Hutch is far from the dumbest person I've debated. Which isn't saying much, because I've debated some very dumb people. But Look at the interactions I had with him. Look what I went through. Had no clue. Was like, obviously it's fraud if you use one number for a loan and a lower number for taxes. Obviously that's fraud. That's literally like 90%, 95% of homeowners. He had no fucking clue. None. No clue. None. Looks like a total fool. Says, I'd call the cops on you if you did that. What? I hope you got a... What's he going to do? Report 10 million people? I'm not saying he's bright, but he ain't the dumbest. Shit, I've seen far dumber people. Has no clue. Doesn't even have a basic clue. But completely confident that his position's right because he saw a YouTube video of someone else that hates Trump saying it was right. So, what about this, Rob? Here's a video. Huh? And then when all else fails, he's finally honest at the end. He's completely honest at the end. The only good faith statement he made this whole time. Cope all you want. He's still on the hook for $450 million. Substantial fraud. Nothing's going to change that. Orange man bad. Orange man fuck. GG. No. RE. That's it. That's the truth. That's the truth. It's the truth with the Bragg case, too. They don't give a shit. I remember there was this guy I saw on Twitter when this Letitia James, like in October, when this case started to go forward. And he was like, hey, so all the Trump, I'm trying to figure this out. Can people point to me a similar case where someone's been fined a substantial amount of money for fraud where all the parties involved were happy? The banks were happy. The money was all paid back. They made money. Can anyone point me a case? And no one was able, spoiler alert, no one was able to point to a case. But all the comments were like, well, what? Trump University? And Trump's just a scumbag. He's been this way his whole life. He's just such a... I'm glad he's getting his comeuppance. He's such a slimy businessman. Right. Orange man bad. Fuck him. Who cares about the details? Not only did I... But when I said, do you got any last words, wouldn't that imply you would still be able to talk? We just had that undercover, I don't think it was James O'Keefe, it was some other group that had the undercover guy that works for the CIA was like, yeah, we got what we wanted with Alex Jones, we find him all this money. Right, that's the point. Set the precedent. Same point here with Trump. Trump is specific. And again, what are all these people going to say? Isn't it amazing, these legal scholars? By the way, not a lawyer. Don't claim to be an expert. But I'm able to look at what people say and point out the bullshit double standards. But all the legal, remember the legal experts like Pisco that told you, oh, Colorado, kicking Trump off the ballot. Totally legitimate. Great decision. Yep. Legally just. Overturned on a 9-0. How'd the legal experts that hate Trump, how'd they mess that one up so bad? Sure, if it was a 6-3 and you'd say, well, the Trump supporting, Clarence Thomas, blah, blah, blah. A 9-0. What are they going to do if this case gets overturned? Well, that's bullshit. The Bragg case. Paying off Stormy Daniels. An NDA. $130,000. For that, Trump's going to spend a month, maybe more, in court every day. In election season. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Oh, it's just, the charges, it's so serious. We got to get to the bottom of this. Of course Trump will be found guilty on the Stormy Daniels case. He was found guilty of the E. John Carroll case. The details don't matter. They fucking hate Trump. They hate him. They don't care about the rule of law. That's exactly the point. If it wasn't a 9-0 decision, and they're still trying to do this, right? The whole point is have all of these corrupt prosecutors and judges throw the book at Trump, all these juries that in areas like New York City and D.C. that hate Trump, find him guilty, then either A, courts uphold it, or B, they overturn it, and then you say, C, the Supreme Court's corrupt, we need to pack it. Supreme Court's corrupt. That's the problem. Right, Smirnoff on Cohen. Yep, Michael Cohen's a big star witness against Trump here. It's blatant for anyone who's remotely objective to see. It's blatant, the double standard. Again, I hate to do this, but, and they don't give a shit. Just like Quick couldn't figure out a hypothetical. So this is why when you say something like this, imagine, I've already lost Quick. What do you mean imagine? It didn't happen. Quick, it means like, huh? Imagine, like something that didn't happen, happening? Like, what? No, but it didn't happen. Imagine that you had some, Ken Paxton in Texas, Attorney General. Let's say he's up for re-election again in 2025, 2026. And he's like, I promise I'm going to run. And, Gavin Newsom is the front runner to be the Democrat candidate. I'm going to run on bringing down Gavin Newsom. We're going to charge him with something. We'll get him. And Paxton wins. And Paxton's like, we're going to extend this statute of limitations case. And we're going to say that Gavin Newsom, right, went to this dinner and spoke to people at the French Laundry, and he didn't write it down as a campaign expenditure, but he was talking to people about the campaign, and he spent $3,000 there. That's campaign expenditure. He didn't put it down as a campaign expenditure. We're charging him. What do you think the Democrats would say? What do you think they would say? They would be like, holy shit. Yep, 6 years ago, Gavin Newsom did this. 8 years ago. It's beyond the statute of limitation. Nah, it's a felony because he covered it up. He didn't put it down on his expenditure. Of course Paxton would have jurisdiction if he claims. It was at a restaurant in Texas. Over and over and over, you show these examples. Hopefully I'll be talking to Destiny soon about the Trump classified documents case. What day are we on now? Like 2 months, 3 months from her report came out? Every Democrat that I talked to on panels and stuff about said, smoking gun evidence. Donald Trump admitted on tape to a writer that he had classified documents. That's the smoking gun. There it is. He knew that he had documents he wasn't supposed to have. He was announcing it to people. No, that's not what happened. He waved a document in the air and said, this should be secret, blah, blah, blah. But that to them, they said smoking gun evidence. Okay, her report comes out. Biden did that not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then, unlike Trump, proceeded to read the classified material and at one point physically hand the classified material over to his writer on tape. 3 months have gone by. I've yet to see one post from all the people, the Piscos, the Brianna Woos, the Destinies, all the people I talked to, the Dylan Burns, haven't seen one post about it. How can that be? It was such a serious crime, they said, to mishandle classified documents. We had to raid Mar-a-Lago. It's so serious. We must have this case tried before the election. But when it's Biden, he meant well. He cooperated. He did not cooperate. He knew he had classified documents for years. 7 years, if not longer. He knew he had classified documents. Never handed them over until he realized, oh shit, we're prosecuting Trump for this. And then it's going to turn out that I had the same thing. I'll just say, oh, okay, I'll hand it over now. And say, see, I cooperated. See? And yet, I see Destiny out there today saying, oh, what Trump did is so much worse. It's so worse. Biden didn't do anything wrong. No. And then when I go on, eventually, if I go on and hand Destiny his ass, just like I did about any of these cases of double standards, every time I make Destiny look like a dumbass. Last time it was about, but James Comey, why did he announce the reopening of the investigation? Well, he announced the reopening of the investigation because a whistleblower went outside the FBI to tell people that the FBI was basically concealing evidence of potential crimes of Hillary Clinton. And once that whistleblower went out, they said, oh shit, we got to cover this up because we don't want to harm Hillary. So we'll announce that we're reopening the investigation and then we'll close it down in 3 days and say, see, nothing to see here. And Destiny said, you don't have proof of that and bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And then we went through the IG report and I was exactly right. And he just went, okay. And then Destiny fans, the majority of them go, well, Destiny kicked Rob's ass. What do you mean? Rob's the one who's got Trump derangement syndrome. He'll defend Trump no matter what. Just like I handed Destiny and Pisco their ass when it came to Hillary Clinton's team, unlike Trump's team, actually deleting subpoenaed evidence, which the investigators never got their hands on. No charges filed. Every one of these cases, same thing. You know how they accuse me of gish galloping, which is funny, listening to Destiny's fans say that, like he doesn't talk fast? Effectively, that's the strategy that the establishment is using against Trump. Well, if we charge him with 91 felonies, then we can have people like Destiny and all these other people go, clearly he's guilty, he's charged with so much. He's charged with so much. Biden's ghostwriter. I had this debate with Hutch today on Twitter. Biden's ghostwriter hears that there's a special counsel commissioned to look into Biden having classified documents. So what's this ghostwriter do when he hears it? Deletes his audio recordings of his conversations with Biden. Can anyone give me the explanation why he would wait? This isn't like, well, he deleted them 3 months before the special prosecutor was like, oh shit, I didn't know that this was happening. He waited till he knew and then deleted. Is there any explanation for that other than he was trying to cover it up? Any? But it's okay though, because then he fessed up and said, listen, I deleted the audio, but here's the transcripts of what the audio is fed. And they were able to recover most of the audio. Now imagine that. Imagine that Trump gets subpoenaed and they're like, we want these voice records, audio records that you have, Trump. We're subpoenaing them. And Trump goes, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll delete them, but I'll make transcripts of what was said and give them to you. Do you think the Democrats would go, perfectly reasonable. He gave us transcripts, so we know that that's accurate. We trust Trump's transcripts. Yep. You think the FBI would say, oh, well, that's not obstruction of justice because you gave us transcripts that you created. Therefore, it's all good. But that's the way it is with Biden. They're like, well, we know these transcripts are accurate. They must be accurate. And, all right, he deleted the shit, but, he fessed up. And, of course, we didn't get all the audio, but that's okay. We trust the transcripts. Oh, thanks, Face. They're claiming because some of the properties were in New York. And the banks, I think, were in New York. Just reading. All right. So, things to look out for. Sorry, I was just reading an email there. Penguins not making the playoffs. I know, it's a bummer. If you saw any parts of this video or the other videos, please put in the chat if you saw a timestamp where you would like to see that edited. Keep a lookout tomorrow or the day after. My friend Black Elk is going to be editing portions of this video for me and then putting that out as a small, 5 to 10 minute video. So that should be up on my YouTube channel. Tomorrow evening, barring any crazy stuff happening, I will be streaming around 8 p.m. Eastern. I should be home, so I'll be at my home office. Don't have to worry about my computer overheating. So yeah, that should be good. Apologies that I haven't been streaming as much. But there's so much to talk about. We haven't talked about the slow march to World War III. Haven't talked about that. All of that good stuff. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Let's see if there's someone to raid on Twitch, I guess. Oh, for crying out loud. Stupid shit. I've been on this computer forever, so I gotta re-sign into all my stuff. Yes. Alright, who we raiding? Ramp for Liberty. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be streaming more consistently. Get some more fun stuff done. But you guys know the spiel. So we will talk to you all tomorrow evening. Thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate it. Pair character doing a classic mic drop. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, have a good one.